Orthodox Christian Prison Ministry is an agency of the Assembly of Bishops of the United States. So this means that we are the national prison ministry of the Orthodox Church in the U.S.
This is the prison ministry across all the Orthodox jurisdictions. Early on, Father Dwayne was the focal point of prison ministry in the Orthodox Church. Certain fundamental best practices that he developed that we continue to use to this day.
Father Dwayne, among others, really was willing and committed to building long-term relationships with men and women who are in prison. And that is the ethos on which our current ministry is still built.
And so visiting them, ministering to them, you listen to their story. We call that the ministry of presence. That you're there, you're visiting them, saying, I care enough about you, so I want to listen to see how you're doing.
Their life is in disarray at that point, and they're looking for answers. And it's an opportunity for them to begin to try and establish a relationship with God.
My 14 years in prison weren't light. There's a lot of challenges. But part of those challenges is also like trying to rediscover who you are.
When I found myself in jail without family, without friends, without anyone to lean on, and I didn't have a good guide. I didn't have any kind of guide.
So we really operate in three primary spheres. The first is if you're an Orthodox Christian who made a mistake, wound up in prison, they're assigned a case manager who's on our staff, who learns about them, their history, builds a relationship, understands what was their prior relationship with the church.
I remember talking to, this man had actually been an altar boy till about the age of 15. And then he told me his life just took off and went the wrong direction. And he ended up at the Supermax prison. And one day he asked me, would church have me back? And I said, in a heartbeat.
We create a unique action plan for how we are going to keep you connected to the church while you're in prison, help you to grow spiritually, educate you in the faith. The second sphere is very similar, but in this case it's for people who aren't Orthodox. It's a common story when somebody winds up in jail or prison. Oftentimes they'll go on a spiritual quest. They discover sometimes the Orthodox faith in a number of different ways.
I had my mom mail me up the New Testament Orthodox Bible, and in that is a address for OCPM.
I remember walking into a chapel that had both Catholics and other Christian denominations would use. And there was this table, and there was these beautiful images of these, what I looked at back then were postcards, what I would consider today being icons. One of my first icons was an image of Dismas. In the back, in fine print, talked about the Orthodox prison ministry there.
Behind me is an icon of the good thief on the iconostas, Dismas. What does Dismas have to say for us? He was a person who was on death row, dying on the cross, discovered Christ. And in discovering Christ, he discovers his true self. A conversation took place. Lord, remember me when you come into your kingdom. And our Lord turns to him and he says, today you will be with me in paradise. He has a name, he has an identity. He's part of our church family. He enters into paradise. In the prison, possibly we're dealing with broken icons that need to be restored. And through the ministry of presence, through our visitation, it's a beginning to restore the person back.
I was starting to want their approval more than anyone else's approval. I wanted to hear from them more than I wanted to hear from my own family, because I didn't feel like I had done anything in this life worthy of that kind of attention.
Through this ministry, about 700 people have come into the Orthodox faith in prison. Many of them are members of our parishes. You may not even know that that person has been in prison. They are living meaningful lives, and they're a blessing to many of our communities. So the third sphere that we operate in is as a resource to people who are doing prison ministry on the local and parish level. OCPM is blessed to have coaches and consultants who have 30+ years in prison ministry experience. A normal phone call for us in any given week would be a priest who would call and say, hey, I've had a parishioner who was arrested. I don't know how to deal with this. I've never experienced this before.
Every priest, every deacon, every layperson should be ready, if called upon, to go into a prison.
I was afraid to enter into a prison. In my own heart, I said, let somebody else do that. When I went through the hallways and I saw the inmates in line formation, my heart was filled with sadness because I saw the brokenness in their eyes. And I felt that if I do go and say yes to this particular calling, it might change me.
And so I think it's really important that we think of ourselves, right? Not only in terms of just Christians, but we think of ourselves of a connector, a mentor. And the more that people who are incarcerated could see what's possible, the more hope that we give people.
One of the resources that OCPM has to offer is cutting-edge, gold standard publications. This includes 12 study courses, a prayer book, Orthodox Christian readings for the day. And all of these materials are printed in a way that the physical construction of the publication is meant to pass through the security restrictions of a prison or jail.
People should feel confident in supporting OCPM because its board and its staff are committed to meeting its mission, to serving those that are incarcerated. And now we're starting to really work hard on developing metrics to measure how successful we are. If we create a program, we want to be able to know that it really does work.
I can remember baptizing one man. We started the prayers of exorcism, and then he just started to weep. He wept through his entire baptism. I mean, that gut-wrenching weeping.
By the time I got out, what it had done was created a love for God and for the Orthodox Church that was beyond measurable, to the point where I was willing to give up everything that this world could offer just for the opportunity to be able to go to church. If my cup was overflowing, I felt like it was empty. However much I had, I did not feel like I had enough.